All right, welcome back to the Tale of Desperauex. When we left off, we have our friends in a sticky situation. Desperauex is with Botticelli. Princess P has been taken by Miggery and Roscuro. Our friend Gregory didn't make it because Roscuro chewed his rope in two. The king's men are looking for Princess P, but there's some good news. Desperauex, he might be a hero. We'll have to wait and find out. So let's get started. Chapter 49. Again, my friends, we must go backward before we go forward. We must consider for a moment what had occurred with the rat and the serving girl and the princess down in the dungeon before Desperauex made his way to them. What happened was this. Roscuro led the P and Mig deep into the dungeon to a hidden chamber, and there he directed Mig to put the princess in chains. "Gore," said Mig. "She's going to have a hard time learning her lessons if she's all chained up like." "Do as I say," said Roscuro. "Maybe," said Mig, "before I lock her up, her and me could switch outfits. So we could start in already with her being me and me being a princess." "Oh, yes," said Roscuro. "Certainly, a wonderful idea, Miss Miggery. Princess, take off your crown and give it to the serving girl." The P sighed, took off her crown and handed it to Mig, and Mig put it on, and it slid immediately right down her small head and came to rest quite painfully on her poor, abused ears. "It's a biggish thing," she said, "and painful like." "Well, well," said Roscuro. "How do I look?" Mig asked, smiling at him. "Ridiculous," he said. "Laughable." Mig stood, blinking back tears. You mean I don't look like a princess?" she said to the rat. "I mean," said Roscuro, "you will never look like a princess, no matter how big a crown you put on your teeny head. You look exactly like the fool you are and always will be. Now, make yourself useful and chain the princess up. Dress-up time is over." Mig sniffed and wiped her eyes and then bent to look at the pile of chains and locks on the floor. "And now, princess," he said, "I'm afraid that the time for your truth has arrived. I will now tell you what your future holds. As you consign me to darkness, so I consign you to life spent in this dungeon." Mig looked up. "Ain't she going upstairs to be a serving maid?" "No," said Roscuro. "Ain't I going to be a princess then?" "No," he said. "But I want to be a princess." "No one," said Roscuro, "cares what you want." As you know, my friends, Miggery had heard this sentiment expressed many times in her short life, but now in the dungeon it hit her full force. The rat was right. No one cared what she wanted. No one had ever cared. And perhaps worst of all, no one ever would care. "I want," cried Mig. "Shh," said the princess. "Shut up," said the rat. "I want," sobbed Mig. I want. "What do you want, Mig?" the princess said. Shouted Mig. "What do you want, Miggery Sow?" "Don't ask her that," said Roscuro. "Shut up, shut up." But it was too late. The words had been said. The question at last had been asked. The world stopped spinning and all of creation held its breath, waiting to hear what it was that Miggery Sow wanted. "I want," said Mig. "Yes," shouted the P. "I want my ma," cried Mig into the silent, waiting world. "I want my ma." "Oh," said the princess. She held out her hand to Mig. Mig took hold of it. "I want my mother too," said the princess softly as she squeezed Mig's hand. "Stop it," shouted Roscuro. "Chain her up. Chain her up." "Gore," said Mig. "I ain't gonna do it. You can't make me do it. I got the knife, don't I?" She took the knife and held it up. If you have any sense at all, said Roscuro, and I heartily doubt that you do, you will not use that instrument on me. Without me, you will never find your way out of the dungeon, and you will starve to death here, or worse. Gore, said Mig. Then lead us out now, or I'll chop you up into little rat bits. No, said Roscuro. The princess shall stay here in the darkness, and you, Mig, will stay with her. But I want to go upstairs, said Mig. I'm afraid that we are stuck here, Mig, shouted the princess, unless the rat has a change of heart and decides to lead us out. There will be no changes of heart, said Roscuro. None. So here we have a picture of Miggery Sal, the princess, and Roscuro deep in the dungeon discussing what's gonna happen next. Gore, said Mig. She lowered the knife. And so the rat and the princess and the serving girl sat together in the dungeon as outside the castle the sun rose and moved through the sky and sank to the earth again and night fell. They sat together until the candle had burned out and another one had been lit. They sat together in the dungeon. They sat and sat. And my friends, truthfully, they might still be sitting there still if a certain mouse had not arrived. Princess! Desperauex shouted. Princess, I've come to save you. The Princess P heard her name. She looked up. Desperauex? She whispered. And then she shouted it. Desperauex! My friends, nothing is sweeter in the sad world than the sound of your name. Someone you love calling your name. Nothing is sweeter. For Desperauex, the sound was worth everything. His lost tail, his trip to the dungeon and back out of it and back into it again. He ran toward the princess. But Roscuro, baring his teeth, blocked the mouse's way. The princess cried, Oh no, rat! Please, don't hurt him. He's my friend. Mig said, Don't worry, princess. I will save the Meesey. She took the kitchen knife. She aimed to cut off the rat's head, but she missed her mark. Whoopsie, said Miggery Sal. Ow! Screamed Roscuro. He turned to look at where his tail had been, and as he did, Desperauex drew his needle and placed the sharp tip of it right where the rat's heart should be. Don't move, said Desperauex. I will kill you. Botticelli laughed from the sidelines. Exactly, he slapped his tail to the floor in approval. Absolutely delightful. A mouse is going to kill a rat. Oh, of all of this is much better than I anticipated. I love it. Nice. When mice come to the dungeon, I love it. And here we have a picture of Desperauex with a needle to Roscuro's heart. All right, let's see what happens. Let me see, said the other rats, pushing and shoving. Stand back, Botticelli told them, still laughing. Let Mouse do his work. Desperauex held the trembling needle against Roscuro's heart. The mouse knew that as a knight it was his duty to protect the princess, but would killing the rat really make the darkness go away? Desperauex bowed his head ever so slightly, and as he did so, his whiskers brushed against the rat's nose. Roscuro sniffed. What is that? What is that smell? He asked. Mousy blood, shouted one rat. Blood and bones, shouted another. You're smelling tears, said Botticelli. Tears and thwarted love. Exactly, said Roscuro, and yet there's something else. He sniffed again. And the smell of soup crashed through his soul like a great wave, bringing with it the memory of light, the chandelier, the music, the laughter, everything, all the things that were not, could never be available to him as a rat. Soup, moaned Roscuro, and he began to cry. Boo, shouted Botticelli. Hissed the other rats. Kill me, said Roscuro. He fell down before That is why I brought the princess here, really. Just for some beauty. Some light of my own. Please, shouted Botticelli, do kill him. He is a miserable excuse for a rat. No, Desperauex, said the princess. Don't kill him. Desperauex lowered his needle. He turned and looked at the pea. Boo, shouted Botticelli again. Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! All this goodness is making me sick. I've lost my appetite. Gore, shouted Mig, waving her knot. I'll kill him. No, wait, said the princess. Roscuro, she said to the rat. What? He said. Tears were falling out of his eyes and creeping down his whiskers and dripping onto the dungeon floor. And then the princess took a deep breath and put a hand on her heart. I think, my friends, that she was feeling the same thing that Desperauex had felt when he was faced with his father begging him for forgiveness. That is, P was aware suddenly of how fragile her heart was, how much darkness was inside it, fighting always with the light. She did not like the rat. She would never like the rat, but she knew what she must do to save her own heart. And so, here are the words that the princess spoke to her enemy. She said, Roscuro, would you like some soup? The rat sniffed. Don't torment me, he said. I promise you, said the princess, that if you lead us out of here, I'll get cook to make you some soup, and you can eat it in the banquet hall. Speaking of eating, shouted one of the rats, give us the mousie. Yeah, shouted another, hand over the mouse. Who would want him now, said Botticelli. The flavor of him will be ruined, all that forgiveness and goodness. Blech. I for one am leaving. Soup in the banquet hall? Roscuro asked the princess. Yes, said the pea. Really? Truly, I promise, she said. Gore, shouted Mig. Soup is illegal. But soup is good, said Desperauex. Yes, said the pea. Isn't it? The princess bent down before the mouse. You are my knight, she said to him, with a shining needle, and I am so glad you found me. Let's go upstairs. Let's eat some soup. And my friends, they did. Chapter 52. I think I forgot to tell you about the other chapters. Let's keep going. But the question you want answered, I know, is did they live happily ever after? Well, did they? Yes and no. What of Roscuro? Did he live happily ever after? Well, the Princess Pea gave him free access to the upstairs of the castle, and he was allowed to go back and forth from the darkness of the dungeon to the light of the upstairs. But, alas, he never really belonged in either place. The sad fate. I'm afraid of those whose hearts break and then mend in crooked ways. But the rat, in seeking forgiveness, did manage to shed some small light, some happiness, into another life. How? Roscuro, my friends, told the princess about the prisoner who had once owned a red tablecloth, and the princess saw to it that the prisoner was released. And Roscuro led the man up out of the dungeon and to his daughter, Miggery Sow. Huh. Nig, as you might have guessed, did not get to be a princess, but her father, to atone for what he had done, had treated her like one for the rest of his days. And what of Desperauex? Did he live happily ever after? Well, he did not marry the princess, if that is what you mean by happily ever after. Even in a world as strange as this one, a mouse and a princess, they cannot marry. But, my friends, they can be friends, and they were. Together, they had many adventures. Those adventures, however, are another story, and this story, I'm afraid, must draw to a close. But before you leave, reader, my friends, imagine this. Imagine an adoring king and a glowing princess and a serving girl with a crown on her head and a rat with a spoon on his, all gathered around a table in a banquet hall. In the middle of a table, there was a great kettle of soup. Sitting in the place of honor, right next to the princess, is a very small mouse with big ears. And peeking out from behind a dusty velvet curtain, looking in amazement at the scene before them, are 4 other mice. And here we have Princess P, Desperauex, Roscuro, Miggery Sal, everyone at the banquet table eating soup. Look! Look, says Antoinette. He lives. He lives, and he seems such the happy mouse. Forgiven, whispers Lester. Cripes, says Furlow. It's unbelievable. Just so, says the Threadmaster Hova, smiling. Just so. And my friends, it is just so, isn't it? That's the end. And here we have the other mice staring in at the scene. Desperauex is the knight in shining armor. He saves the princess. Do you remember when Desperauex was in the dungeon, cupped in Gregory the jailer's hand, whispering a story in the old man's ear? I would like it very much if you thought of me as a mouse telling you a story, this story, with the whole of my heart, whispering it in your ear in order to save myself from the darkness and to save you from darkness too. Stories are light, Gregory the jailer told Desperauex. My friends, I hope you have found some light here. And that is the tale of Desperauex. Have a good day. Stay tuned. The next one, I have a couple that I have in mind. You'll just have to wait and see which one it is. I'm not going to tell you. It'll be a surprise. You'll like them, though. Both of them are... One of them has a movie, the other doesn't. But you have to promise that if you've watched the movie, you listen to the whole story because they're different. The second one doesn't have a movie, but it's a great story anyway. I'll see you soon.